Welcome to the enthusiasts of British motor vehicles record of the March 2025 Restoration Show at Birmingham's National Exhibition Centre. We start with a clean and shiny Sprout, the 1972 Austin Sprite belonging to Dean and Liz. Egbert was sent off to be pampered at the Car Care Club, where his body was shampooed and given a ceramic coating. His insides were thoroughly cleaned, being given stripes on his carpet, a bit like a well-cut lawn. Under his bonnet was thoroughly cleaned too. Here he's seen coming out of the workshop into daylight for the first time, after Fred's hard work.
And here we see Sprout the Sprite, try saying that after a couple of beers, on his way to the show. Sprout met up with some of his fellow stand members, Egbert, the MGB, and Big MG, the MGR V8. Betty, Gaz Mondio, was towing the trailer with all the stand accessories aboard.
The convoy followed Betty into all four, and then hard work began.
The following day, the complete stand can be seen, with the rare Jaguar XJ13 evocation, one of only 7 built by Proteus, alongside Sprout. Jaguar built the original XJ13 with plans to race it at Le Mans. Development took too long, and when finished it was not sufficiently competitive to win the race. They only built one. The Proteus evocation is almost indistinguishable from the prototype, the biggest difference being that the Jaguar V12 engine in the prototype has twin overhead camshafts to each bank of cylinders, whereas the evocation uses the standard Jaguar V12 engine with a single overhead camshaft to each bank. Anthony bought his 1965 MGB in 1979 with 100,000 miles on the clock. With 171,000 miles on the clock, he rebuilt it between 1990 and 1995 into a new heritage body shell. It has completed over 50,000 miles since, and is a joy to drive. It is the second oldest car in his fleet. The MGR V8 is the last derivative of the 1962 MGB, with the biggest engine at almost 4 litres. Just under 2,000 were built into modified MGB body shells. Nick's MGR V8 joined his fleet in July 2023 and has been enjoyed on many adventures, including 2 long weekends in Anglesey.
And enjoying a chat together are regular team members Pat, Phil, Paul, Mike, Gar and Nick, along with Tony and Gus.
These 2 Ford Escorts look like new. Did you know that new Ford Escort Mark I RS cars are being built in Coventry?
Apparently this is being done by Boreham Motorworks with full official backing from Ford, and it's not just a resto mod, it's an entirely new car built from the ground up with continuation chassis numbers from the original production run.
The Riley Kestrel was the sporty version of the ADO 16, the range starting with the Austin and Morris 1100 and topped off with the luxury Vanden Plas 1300. The Riley came complete with a lovely, fully instrumented wooden dash and twin carburetors. This recently restored 1949 Riley RMB looks splendid in its recently applied coat of paint. Another smaller Riley is the Alf, a derivative of the ADO 15, the real Mini, which was developed with a bigger boot and added luxury. Finally, on the Riley stand, a peek under the bonnet of another of the Kestrels. This car is yet to be completed, but if you look carefully, you can spot the sporty twin SU carburettors behind the rocker cover. A popular van during the 1960s and early 1970s was the Austin Morris J4. The mechanicals of these vans were mainly sourced from the Austin Morris range of cars. Here we have the Austin 10 Drivers Club stand with various 1930 Austins on display. First is a Goodwood, a 14.6, followed by two Austin 12.4 Harleys. This Morris Minor is receiving attention to its braking systems, with its front drum brakes exposed. An upgrade to the original front brakes was to fit MG midget disc brakes. This Morris Minor, emulating a barn find, has been stripped of many of its essential components. Let's hope it is restored to its former glory. The Morris Oxford MO pickup usually had a slightly larger load deck. It looked like a large Morris Minor pickup, like the bottom half of the van. However, this one appears to have been modified over the years. As well as being manufactured as saloons, the Morris Minor was produced as the Morris Traveller, an estate car, and both as a pickup and a van, like commercial vehicle versions. The Morris Minor was vastly improved after the formation of BMC in 1952, when the Austin A-Series overhead valve engine was fitted to it. In latter years of production, the light commercial vehicles were also badged as Austins to replace the discontinued Austin A35 versions. Austin 7s have formed the basis for building specials since the middle of the last century, and nothing has changed over the last 70 years. A new aluminium body has been fabricated for this one, and its engine has been prepared with twin SU carburettors, which should give it a bit more power. Of these two Wolseley 444s, the black one reminds me of police cars in my youth, which had a Winkworth bell mounted on the front and a police on a number plate across the grille. The Rolls-Royce Corniche looks splendid. Its restoration not yet complete, although it was worrying that it was displayed on the edge of the barn finds. However, its sister Bentley looked very sad, having suffered extensive rear end damage. The Bentley looked more appropriate amongst the barn finds. This lovely Austin A30 from the 1950s seemed to have survived well in its barn, but does need more than a little teacup to return it to pristine condition again. One hopes it will return to the road in the near future. I am amazed that quite young cars like this 1991 Citroën become barn finds.
I have very fond memories of the Citroën BX. I had two. I had a BX 19 TRS, the hatchback, and also an estate like this one. The estate was scary. The steering was so light that at high speed it felt dangerous. The slightest twitch on the wheel and you could be off the road. But faults aside, they were a great car.
Austin produced the car for the millions with the Austin 7 from 1922. It was a great success, with over 330,000 being built between 1922 and 1939. This one is a Ruby, one of the later cars, and for its age it looks remarkably solid. This 1954 Daimler, with its 2.4 litre engine, looks as if Much attention with the teacup might actually bring it back together again with a good clean inside. However, I'm not sure about its bonnet mascot, which looks a little dangerous.
This model is very closely related to the Daimler Conquest, which I owned an example of a few years ago. Many of the body panels look very similar, so whilst they may not be identical, they certainly appear to have been reusing what they could. Very rare car, this. I'm just picking up Anthony's comment about the bonnet mascot. I may be wrong, but I believe that's a non-standard, something that's been added. And if you know otherwise, please let us know in the comments.
Large Austin light commercial vehicles are rare, and this 1950 Austin Hampshire pickup is no exception. It was presented with a load of milk churns and straw bales, some of which were carried in its trailer. Across from the enthusiast of British motor vehicle stand was the Austin Counties Car Club stand, and this lovely Austin A90 Atlantic saloon, which was not far from completion after its overhaul. Its shiny black coachwork looked splendid. I do wonder who let supercars from the past get into such a neglected condition. I would have loved to restore this Aston Martin in my younger days. It makes me feel old when I see a car like this 1977 Mini 1275 GT as a barn find. It was built shortly before I finished my Austin apprenticeship at Longbridge. It should be a simple restoration as all parts are available, including the complete body shell. This Allard, with its side valve V8 engine, looked as if it could be rather splendid when finished, although the owner may have chosen to keep it looking as it is. I would guess that it may end up as a competition car. Another Allard in the same colour. Maybe there is a trend developing for raw aluminium bodywork. A Morris 8, slightly bigger than the Austin 7, from February 1935, looks well cared for, and the interior trim suggests it's been replaced recently. This Riley RMA dates back to 1948 and looks to be in excellent condition. These were big cars for that 1500cc engine. Armstrong Siddeley made this large car in early 1949. It has a 2309cc power unit. Interestingly, displayed without its roof covering, the roof panel is made of perforated steel, presumably to reduce weight. This Armstrong Siddeley Star looked lovely, Dating back to July 1960, when it was registered, it looks to be much older. It is powered by a 3,990cc engine and appears to have changed hands in April 2024, just 12 months ago. It is interesting that its rear lights were chosen for the real Mini pickup. The Swallow Sidecar Company arranged to buy Austin 7 chassis, engines and transmissions and fit their own bodies to make the Austin Swallow cars from 1928. This one, made in 1930, would have cost around about £175 new. Swallow Sidecars went on to make Jaguar cars, and the company name changed in 1945. It could be argued that the Austin Swallow 7 was the first Jaguar, just as Austin 7 was the first BMW four-wheel car built under license. The Jaguar XJ13 is always a very pleasing car to cast one's eye over. This lovely Bentley Mark VI first hit the road in 1950 and still looks as smart as it would have done when it left the factory in Crewe.
This grey Jaguar is an XJ6 built in 1991 with a 4-speed automatic gearbox at a top speed of 131 miles per hour and output 200 brake horsepower. It's a 6-cylinder straight 6 engine, absolutely beautiful.
As a fan of British Leyland cars, I'm not so sure about the odd-coloured Mercedes.
Well, you may not like it, Anthony, but that's a 1970 Mercedes 280 and I love it.
This little MG TA Tickford is another splendid looking car, which dates back to 1938. It was a sporting car in its time, in spite of its little 1292cc engine. The radiator mascot would have represented a midge. And another XJ series car, this one being a Series 3 Daimler 66 with its 5,343cc V12 power unit. Yet another XJ series Daimler, this one a rare two-door coupe fitted with the 4.2 litre XJ engine. It's a Series 2 dating back to late 1977. This Alvis TD21 is a wonderful car and was available as a soft top and as a saloon. The ride is as good as a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow or a Jaguar XJ6. Sadly, Alvis production was changed over to military vehicles in 1967. The Alvis Red Triangle was also displayed on 3 earlier models on the show stand. The SU carburettor on this Alvis will have been a later addition. SU made very versatile and economical carburettors.
A registration lookup tells us that this Alvis was first manufactured in 1910 and was originally white with a 1.6 litre engine. And we don't know what model it is, unfortunately, but if you can tell us about it, please let us know in the comments.
An important part of motoring in the past, and for some time longer, is the petrol pump, and these were represented at the show. Another Morris Minor, this one a bare painted body shell on a rotisserie. This is a real Mini Clubman body shell, modified to give a bigger boot, and I'm sure it will result in a delightful touring two-seater. This Lotus Europa is simply separated into its fiberglass body and chassis. The Reliance Scimitar is like the Lotus Europa, made of fiberglass, its body fitted to a steel chassis. The Princess Royal had several of these cars and was stopped for speeding many times. The Ford Cortina Mark II 1600E was a popular high-specification car.
This particular one dates from 1968, and the records tell us that it has an 83% pass rate, having passed 15 MOTs, only failed 3. Very good. It has some advisories on the current certificate, which is valid until June, but they're all pretty minor stuff. Parking brake requires service, for example. Good for the owner, looking after it well, and it's a real credit to them. One of the most popular cars of its era. I never had a 1600E, but I did have the 1600 GT, which I believe was reckoned to have the same performance, but not quite the trim levels. Mine was a 2-door with a vinyl roof, and it got stolen, of course. Just one footnote about that performance: I was only 19 when I owned my GT, and I was beaten by a Mini down the dual carriageway. Oh, the shame.
The MGB was a superb budget sports car made from 1962 to 1980. The Triumph Herald is well on its way back onto the road with a lovely paint job. This little MG J2, registered in April 1933 with an 885cc engine, looks quite fun. My first company car was a Rover 820i Fastback in British Racing Green, and what a lovely car that was. The Hillman Husky was derived from the Hillman Imp, with its rear engine based on the Coventry Climax fire pump engine. The Husky was the estate car and shared its bodywork with the Comet Imp 500-weight van. These vehicles competed directly against the Austin Mini Traveller and van. This is a 1959 Austin Healey Sprite, also known as a Frog Eye or Bug Eye, for obvious reasons. It was the first model of small sports car developed by the Healey Motor Company with Austin, and was manufactured at the MG factory at Abingdon. Later versions shared the body and mechanicals of the MG Midget, all being based on the Frog Eye chassis. Initially, after its 1958 launch, the Sprite cost £669. Sprout, on our stand, is a later derivative of this car. This 1963 Sunbeam Alpine was a direct competitor with the MGB. It was fitted with a 1594cc engine, and I can remember Sean Connery driving one well in an early James Bond film, before he moved on to Aston Martins. The Meadows Friskies were microcars built in Wolverhampton between 1958 and 1961. They were designed by Giovanni Michelotti and came as 3- and 4-wheelers and as 2-door coupe, convertible or saloons. The white car with the blue stripe is the prototype of the Frisky Sprint, rumoured to achieve 90 miles an hour. This emerald green Vauxhall Victor FE 2300 SL would certainly have been admired by our late member Zebedee Habib, especially if trimmed in velo.
This is a car that brings back memories for me. When I was a teenager, my best friend was given a bright red 2300 Victor Estate. So it was the 2300 VX. I remember he was very proud that we could maintain a steady 80 miles per hour up a notorious hill just outside Bristol on the M5 motorway. My car had to go down to 3rd gear to get up there.
The Princess Owners Club had 3 cars on their stand. The first is fitted with an O series engine, probably a 2 litre, as the 1700 had 4 round headlamps, the 2 litre and 2.2 litre having trapezoidal headlamps. The second car on the stand, in white, is fitted with a 2227cc 6-cylinder E-series engine derived from the 4-cylinder Maxi engine. The final car in the lineup is another E6 engine car, a Wolseley 6, which was only in production for 6 months from the initial launch of the Princess, which was firstly badged as the Austin and Morris 1822 series and Wolseley 6. This damask red 4-door Morris Marina 1.8 was one of many robust family cars to be made at the Morris factory at Cowley. Alongside is another Marina derivative, the 2-door coupe. This car looks to be extensively worked on at the show, with the engine bay being totally empty. The third car on this stand is a Morris Ital, the final version of the Marina. This car is fitted with the 1700cc O series engine and dates back to 1980, 2 years before Ital production was moved to Longbridge in Cowley to make room for the Austin Maestro and Montego production facilities. The final Marina does not look to have a BMC or BL engine fitted, but it should be a 1.3 litre Austin A series engine in the engine bay.
On the Jowett stand, a van is being restored with a chippy replacing the woodwork of the van body. The next Jowett appears to be a 7 chummy, short chassis Tourer from the 1920s. The beige car is a 1953 Jaguar Javelin with its 1.5 litre flat 4 engine. The remaining Jowetts are derivatives of the Jupiter, again with their flat 4 engines. The red car is very special to the Jowett world, bodied by J.E. Fire & Sons for Rob Ellison to use as a competition car. Whilst it was entered in the Monte Carlo Rally, it crashed out and was not classified. It has subsequently been rebuilt to its current condition. Jowetts were made near Bradford between 1906 and 1954. The light commercial vehicles, both the pickup and the van, were named after the town.
This Rolls-Royce, converted into a pickup with a solid cover over the load deck, looked rather splendid. However, who would want a Rolls-Royce to move bricks anyway? This 1948 Austin A40 Devon seems to have been modified a little since leaving Longbridge. The Princess, however, is an early 1800cc version with the old B series engine. The later O series engines were 1.7 or 2 litre. The 1973 Rover P6 is a 3500cc V8. This 4 litre Aston Martin was registered in September 1967. This lovely Wolseley Hornet was made in 1934 and has a 6-cylinder 1631cc engine.
Here we see a display of Wolseley Hornet Specials. These were introduced in 1932 and were a sporty upgrade to the standard Wolseley Hornet. It had a more powerful 1271cc inline 6 engine and bespoke coach-built bodywork, making each car unique. They were very popular with motor enthusiasts and remain a cherished example of British pre-war automotive design and craftsmanship. Today it's a cherished collector's item and really is a symbol of an era when motoring was as much about style and individuality as it was about practicality.
This business refurbishes real mini body shells and displayed a part rebuilt mini pickup, a Mark III mini body shell, a rather nice looking deep red mini body shell, a complete 1961 Austin 7 Mini, a Mini Traveller without the wood, which was an option, and a complete BL Mini pickup. On a nearby stand, an Escort Mark I body shell is receiving a similar refurbishment to the Mini pickup. The MG Owners Club were displaying a sectioned MGB Roadster fitted with many of the spares and accessories available from their spares department in Cambridgeshire. There was a selection of Lotus cars from barn find to very shiny condition on the Lotus Grand Tourer stand. This group helps support owners of the Lotus Elite, Eclat and XL cars. This is a 1938 Jaguar SS100, a very nice sports car for its time with a 3.5 litre engine. Jaguar went on to do greater things after the Second World War.
When your classic car cover is coming up for renewal, try our club scheme arranged with Peter James Insurance. It offers great rates and a range of exclusive benefits including free salvage retention and multi-vehicle options. Just click the link in the description below to get a quote.
The Jaguar Heritage Trust had only just received this lovely XK Coupe and were giving it a good going over and polish at the show. Next door to the Jaguar Heritage Trust is the Jaguar Drivers Club display, which included a Mark II 3.8 litre from 1965 with silver coach work and a very shiny V12 E-Type 2+2. The cockpit looks a very nice place to be. There's also a late XK8 with a V8 engine to complete the lineup. This also looks very comfortable inside.
This beautiful blue Jaguar is a XJ8 with a 3.2 litre engine. It's the executive 4-door, first registered in September 2001, and across the numbering XJ8 signifies that it has a V8 engine.
The Jaguar XJS Club displayed both the coupe versions of the car with their buttresses around the rear window and convertibles to celebrate the car's 50th anniversary. I can advise there are V12 engines of 5.3 litres in some of the cars, and at least one has a 4 litre XJ6 engine. The car, for Europe and Canada, was initially fitted with 2 headlamps, and those for America with 4 round headlamps. On the ADO16 Club stand, the first car is a 1965 Mark I in Iris Blue. The second car is another Morris, a 1300 Mark II, and the final car looks to be a Wolseley Mark I derivative. ADO16 is the code used to describe the model from design conception. The Marcus Owners Club were displaying the Marcus GT. I was disappointed they did not have a Mini Marcus on display, as these small sports cars were based on the Mini Mechanicals, and I can remember them in my youth. The Ford Side Valve Club had vehicles in various states of completion on their stand. The first car was basically just a rolling shell, with all its wheels and body, but little more. Ford used the Thames name for their commercial and light commercial vehicles, and would have done so for the van, believed to be a 300E. These vans were to be seen everywhere, until replaced by the 105E Anglia van. The Thames half-ton pickup dates back to 1952, whilst the Model T breakdown truck is considerably older. Next come the Ford 100E cars, known initially as the Anglia with 2 doors and the Prefect with 4 doors, again fitted with side valve engines, although the blue car engine has been modified with an alloy cylinder head and twin SU carburettors. Finally, there is not much steel left in this body shell, which seems to have lost its entire floor pan, bulkheads and flitch plates. That will make an interesting restoration project. We have a brief view of 4 Ford Escorts of differing marks, with an early Mark I on the right. The Escort Mark III is missing. This black estate car is an MG ZTT, followed by a red MG ZS saloon, and finally an MG ZR hatchback. The ZT was based on the Rover 75, the ZS on the Rover 45 and the ZR on the Rover 25, and all were developed during the last 5 years of car manufacture at Longbridge by MG Rover Group. With a rear view of a red MG TF 2-seater sports car and the front of a white earlier MGF, we take a break from Longbridge built cars. On the Rover P6 stand, the first car seems to have been built to an American specification, although I'm not sure about the bonnet. It is fitted with a 3500cc V8 engine. The yellow car is also a V8. The final car is another 3500 fitted with the V8 engine. Back amongst Longbridge built cars again, the Rover 200 was a very successful model along with its sister the Rover 400. The later 200 and 400 models were renamed by BMW to the Rover 25 and 45. Finally, the Rover 200 BRM Limited Edition. One year, 36 of these cars appeared at the Pride of Longbridge rally. This is an interesting Rover P5 hearse, which would have started life at Solihull before being modified by a coach builder. And adjacent is a Rover 800 Coupe, a rare car that was built at Cowley. I said the last Rover 800 Coupe was a rare machine, but here's another. The two-door Rover 800's being built in very low numbers. Two Rover SD1s here, the blue one on the left having a 2.4 litre VM diesel engine, and the white one on the right being a petrol 3500 V8. They were lovely cars and were built at Solihull, Castle Bromwich and Cowley, as well as being built at Chennai in India, Nelson in New Zealand, Blackheath in South Africa, which was the assembly of CKD parts. Back to a Longbridge built Rover 200. This one is a cabriolet. The low volume derivatives were assembled in cab 2 rather than cab 1 where the high volume derivatives were put together. Cab is the car assembly building, of course. But back to Solihull with a 1974 Mark I Range Rover and a 3 litre Rover P5 from 1963. Finally, an October 1922 Rover 8 horsepower with a 1056cc engine, which would have been built at Tyseley in Birmingham, all on the Rover Sports Register stand. This Triumph Herald is undergoing major surgery. It looks to be a 1360 convertible, and these cars never had a driver's seat looking as comfortable as that when they left Canley. One of my favourite modern classics is the Montego Estate. I had one of the last built at Cowley in late 1994. A Countryman 7-seater. The police had many Maestro vans, this one being a replica, but so well recreated that a policeman actually suggested he drove it whilst on duty. And here we can see the Rover O-Series Perkins Prima diesel engine under the bonnet of a Montego. These excellent engines gave 60 miles per gallon no matter how heavy the driver's right foot. The car, however, looks as if it needs a lot of love. This Rover 100, in effect an Austin Metro Mark III, is showing off its K-Series engine, all neatly packaged under the bonnet. However, this yellow Austin Metro engine bay is devoid of its power unit and transmission, and looks very empty. The last car on the Metro Owners Club stand is Jamie Field's rare Vanden Plas version, which is presented in pristine condition, probably better than when it left the production line in Cab 1 at Longbridge in the summer of 1988. We now look at a 1946 Morris 8 built at Cowley. My mother and grandmother shared one of these when I was very young, and I can remember being wrapped up in a rug in the back seat because it didn't have a heater. Next to the Morris is a Longbridge built Rover 75. Followed by a Solihull built Range Rover and Rover P6. The Triumph TR7 and TR8 were successfully rallied by the company, with drivers like the late Tony Pond collecting much silverware. This car was not one of the company fleet, as it was not registered in Coventry. The Austin Allegro can probably be described as a Marmite car. You either like them or you don't. However, whatever might have been said about them, they were generally very dependable, and certainly the three-door estate was very versatile.
I think, Anthony, you could also argue that the estate styling was years ahead of its time. What looked very strange when it was launched doesn't look so strange at all these days.
I do worry that the driver of this black estate has been driving for too long. Perhaps he should have taken a break along the way for a bite to eat. We ride with our boss, Gar, back to our stand, catching my 1965 MGB Roadster sparkling under the NEC lights.
And can I add a quick welcome back to Julie's basket? It's been a year since we've seen it, and you're with us in spirit, Julie.
Next to my MGB is Nick's MGR V8, so visitors could compare an early and late car in what is basically the same body shell.
Smile. Smile, Phil.
See you later. 3 GT2. Devon Dash.
After waking up some of the team, Gar drives round to Dean and Lizzie's Sprout, the Austin Sprite. And then we see the Proteus Jaguar XJ13 arranged by Paul Cheetham. Just to prove we've circumnavigated the stand, we're back to Egbert, my MGB again. A Morris Minor pickup is pushed out of the way, whilst the red Morris watches on. Another Morris makes a quick exit. Followed by another Austin Swallow, this time an open one. A Woody Alvis estate car heads home. And Nick has powered up his MGR V8 to take it back to Staffordshire.
See you later. See you next. Yeah, take care.
Finally, Sprout returns home to his garage after his holiday at the NEC. We hope you've enjoyed our tour of the restoration show at the NEC, and you will return to our channel to view more of our videos.